little young Urshas today. Can y'all give these young people a hand? Oh, I'm just so full, I don't know what to do. It's been a while, but I promise you I won't be long. If y'all give me your little amens, I promise you we'll be out of here by 12:30 or a little before. Amen. 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 If you all will stand and turn with me to 2 Kings chapter 4. We're going to start at the first verse. Amen. Are we there? It said, now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets of Elijah, saying, thy servant my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord, and thy creditors is coming to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondsmen, to be a slave. And Elijah said unto her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, thy handmaid had not anything in the house save a pot of oil. Then he said, go borrow these vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door unto thee and unto thy sons, and shall pour out unto all those vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. So she went from him and shut the door, and asked her and unto her sons who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels was full, that she said unto her sons, bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, there are not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Then she came and told the man of God. And he said, go, sell the oil, and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children on the rest. You may be seated. Let's go back up to verse 2, and it said, Elijah said unto her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in thy house? Can I say to you, just for a little bit, you have a blessing in your house. Amen. And then for you little children, y'all know hashtag, a little is enough. So, you know how the lady in this text is in a desperate situation. Now, a lot of times, we always look at the storm, and we don't look at what is left behind the storm, the aftermath, the residue. Now, she done got over, or she's kind of done toiled through the death of her husband. Now she in another storm, which the death of her husband left some things behind, left some residue that she really didn't know how to handle. And if I could say so, she was in a situation that she didn't know what to do. Have you ever been in a situation that you just didn't know what to do? And she went crying out to the man of God, and I like that, because she went crying out to somebody that she knew could help her. Or she went crying out to somebody that she knew could get a word to heaven. She went crying out to somebody that she knew I can touch and agree, and God gonna be in the midst, and he gonna hear my prayer. So she went and found somebody that could come in agreement with her. And she went asking, and she was crying out, you know, what can you do now? You know my husband, you know he was sitting under you. He was learning under you. He was being trained by you. And she said he was a man of God. So what can I do? Because his creditors, all these people that he always coming to me. And now they're looking at my sons to take them into slavery. All right. So she said, what can I do? All he did was looked at her and said, what you got in your house? Now, and she looked at him. Now, what she said, I don't have anything. but the anything that she said she didn't have was a blessing to her. She said, I don't have anything. All I have is just a little pot of oil that she thought was worthless. And that's what we do. We look, when we're looking for a blessing, or when we're looking for something, we'll look all over what we have in our own house. But when I looked at it today, and even as God has gave it to me, but I was looking at the little children. I started out devotion and I looked at my little grandson when he prayed the prayer, and he said, Lord, I want you to bless everybody. And Lord, you know the ones that stand in the need of blessing, you bless them. And he said, I want them to feel better when they leave him than when they came. All right. And I looked at it, I said, that's a blessing in the house. And Maddie came along and she started singing, the Lord is keeping me, and she sung that thing till she felt it. And she began to point to herself that God was keeping her, and she began to say that God, healed her mama, and Lord healed her grandmother. And she just kept saying the Lord was keeping me. So I said, Lord, that's a blessing in that house. Of course, y'all know our little grown up, our little Kim, when she said, Lord, I just want to thank you. Yeah, and I looked at those things and how we'll overlook, and we'll leave our house. We'll get on the phone and we begin to call everybody but the little children that's running around, that which is a blessing in the house. And so I looked at that and I said, God, look at all these blessings that we have in this house. In Green Grove. Our blessings that we are looking over, that we have to put in active because they have been behind us, but we need to push them out. Because we always say, and old folks say, Muddy and them and all of them used to say, we're a church of tomorrow, but we're a church of today. So we need to push them more than what we've been pushing them. Oh, I forgot my little girl when she sung, when she opened us up. Lord have mercy, she said, every praise. Every praise is to our God. And they were so eager to do it. When we come to choir rehearsal and we beg people, we need somebody to lead this song, and nobody wants to lead it. And the children said, I want to do it. And they want to step up and do the work of the Lord. But I'll go back to our story now. Her first little step was she went and asked the man of God. Yeah. That's what she did first. She asked. And he told her, what kind of opened up to me was Elijah stepped back. And he wasn't in the limelight. He stepped back and let her sow, or let her see what God could do in her life. He didn't do it for her. He stepped back and let her went through the motions to do what she needed to do, so she could see that God, nobody but the Lord, did it for her. Right. So then she listened to what the man of God told her to do. How many times we ask for an advice and we don't listen? We hear, but we don't listen. Right. There's a difference in listening and hearing. And the reason why I said that, we be at home. Can I bring home husband and wife? We sitting up, and a lot of times I'm gonna go. Can I go to the husband first? They watching sports, and we just talking because we want some attention. And he'll say, "Okay, I hear you," but he didn't hear what you said. Because he'll come back and say something that you didn't say. You can say, "Oh, what we gonna eat today?" And you want some chicken, and then he'll say, we want some hamburgers. No, that's not what I said. But he hear you, but he wasn't listening. And here we go. Our minds run 90 to nothing because we doing multiple things at one time. Men can't do that. Do y'all understand that men cannot do multiple things at one time? Y'all know, because we can go put a load of clothes in the washer, we can have a pot on the stove, and we can be doing something else or writing something. Y'all have to do one thing at one time. So we're doing multiple things in our mind, and y'all talking to us, but we say, okay, You say, you didn't hear me. I did just yesterday. My husband said, that ain't what I said. I said, oh, I'm sorry. So there's a difference in listening and hearing. And so she listened to what the man of God told her to do. He said, what you got in your house? And she said, not anything, not nothing. And you know how we can say we got nothing? You know how in the olden days when we didn't realize what mama and daddy them was doing, but mama could make a meal out of one chicken, and she can make that chicken stretch and feed 10 plus people. We didn't know how it worked. And she made it multiply. So when we went back and we wanted seconds, we'll say, ain't nothing in the pot, but if we scrape the pot, we had enough just for another portion. But we said we didn't have nothing. So she said, I had nothing. But when she began to think about it, she said, I got a pot of oil. So then he told her, he said, you know what? You got a little pot of oil. A little pot, a little is enough. And he told her, he said, what I need you to do is go and get your boys. Y'all go to knocking on the doors. You ain't got nothing. You already in debt, and he telling you to go borrow some more. Y'all remember in the country how we could go knock on the door and say, can I borrow a cup of sugar? And then you can go knock on another, can I borrow a cup of flour? And by the time you get through, you can make a meal. And then, they'll say, I'll give it back to you when we get it. But we can't go knock on doors now. But we used to could go knock on doors and borrow what we didn't have. And so she went, and him and her boys went and knocked on doors and said, we need to borrow a vessel. Now the vessels wasn't small, but she had a little bit of oil. And he told her to go get some vessels so he could fill them up. And she said she didn't understand it. Sometimes God do things that we just don't understand. It makes no sense at all. I'm already in debt, but you telling me to go borrow, and then you telling me to get some vessels when I have a little bit. And he said, go borrow all the vessels, go abroad, go away and get all the vessels and come in. And when you get them, he said, go and shut the door. And I didn't understand. He said, shut the door. But I went back to Matthew 6:6, and he said that when you begin to pray, go in your closet, shut the door. He said, when you pray to me secretly, I will reward you openly. So he said, shut the door behind you, because this blessing and this miracle is only for you and your sons. I don't want anybody to see it, but they're going to see the miracle when you open the door. They're going to see the miracle when you begin to go out and pay your debts off. He said, shut the door. She began to pour. Can I tell you that God can give you a little bit? But when you begin to pour it out, he'll give you some more. And the more you pour, the more he'll give you. The more you pour out, the more he'll give you. The more you pour out, he'll give you. You say, I got a little bit of joy, but if you pour a little bit of joy out, he'll give you some more. You say, I got a little bit of money, but if I just give my tithes and offering, he said, I'll multiply that. The little bit that you got, if you pour it out, he said, I'll multiply it. And that's all he did. She kept pouring, and she kept pouring, and she kept pouring, and all the vessels were full. And even when all the vessels were full, she looked back to her son and said, give me another one. And he said, there's none left. And she had poured out, and when all the vessels was full, God stayed the oil. When she had enough, and then she went back to the man of God. And she told him what she had done. He said, all the vessels that you have of oil, he said, take them, go pay your creditors off. And what you got left, he said, y'all live off of it. So he gave her more than what she had. Don't you know a little bit is enough? I looked at the little kids today, and they gave just a little bit. They gave their little voices to God, and as they gave it to God, God gave them a little bit more. When Maddie began to pour out of her spirit, God poured more in, that she began to feel what she was singing. And if you just pour out what God has given you, he'll pour it back in you. I promise you, just give what God has given you. If you don't pour it out, then he don't give you nothing. But if you begin to pour out what God has given you, he will multiply. He will give you more. When some people say, I got the gift of singing, and I got the gift of praying. I got the gift of laying on hands. But that's because when he gave me one, I began to multiply. And I was going out and I was using it. I didn't bury it. I went and used what he gave me, and he began to give me more. And he began to give me more. And he began to give me more because I poured it out. But I want to let you know that when you're looking around, that you got a blessing in your house. You ain't got to look for it. You got a blessing in your house. If you just look around and see what you got in your house, you don't need very much. You got a blessing in your house, and a little is enough. It don't have to be very much. He said, I got faith by the size of a mustard seed. I can speak to that mountain and it will be removed. I can say, move out of my way. Whatever is hindering me, I can say, move out of my way. And God said it will move. All I need is just a little bit, and he will make it a lot. If I got a little bit of joy, all I got to do is keep on praising him. If I got a little bit of faith, all I got to do is speak to the mountain, and it's going to move. If I got a little bit of money, he'll multiply it. Sometimes the money gets funny when you have more money than money. But if you just spread it out, give God what he asked for, he'll multiply it, and you will look back and say, hell, I got over. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, tell me where would I be? The woman asked. She listened and she obeyed. And God blessed her. And that's all we got to do. When we get in a predicament, when we get in back up to the corner, when we back up to the wall, don't know which way to go. All we got to do is act. All we got to do is listen and obey what God tells us to do. All we got to do is call him out and tell him what we want. He will, he will, he will, he will answer your call. I got a story, and I'm going to my secret. There was a man, true story, 1990. He went and robbed a bank because he was in a desperate need of money. He said, I'm tired of being poor. So when he went and robbed the bank, he came back with about $6,000. Got away with it, but they apprehended him. And when they caught him, and when the police looked at the pistol that he had in his hand, it was one that had been made in 1918 in Quebec, 1 out of 10. So the pistol that he robbed the bank with was worth $100,000, and he only got $6,000. He had a